everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on the season finale of DanDaDan, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I have been kind of in the stages of grief with this show where I've been in denial that it was the season finale for a long time. I was like, no, it's not the season finale, it's not episode 12, and then as I sat down this weekend to record this episode, I've literally held off until the last minute, and then finally some things with scheduling came up, and I told Geen, one of the moderators, I was like, hey, can you please check the comments, because I need to record this episode. I've held off as long as I can. So before we dive into the comments, because there are several for episodes 9, 10, and 11 that I want to talk about before we get to episode 12, I want to say a strong thanks to Geen and Truck, and I hope you all thank them as well, because Geen and Truck, they have read the manga, they know the series, and they volunteered their time for these last 12 weeks to go through, and they'll probably do that for this episode, at least for like the first week to check for spoilers, to make sure nobody's spoiling me, but they have dedicated literally 3 months of their lives week to week checking for comments and checking for spoilers. And honestly, I would not be able to read y'all's comments without a moderator going through and making me feel safe that I wasn't going to be spoiled. So thank you very much to Geen and Truck. Thank you so much for being able to spoiler check for me. It has been such an immense help, and I really, really appreciate it. With that being said, I am still going to check comments for episode 11 when it hits YouTube, and for this episode when it hits Patreon as well as YouTube. So I am excited to hear your comments. I am going to ask Geen and Truck if they'll moderate for another week or two just to help me make sure I don't get spoiled, because I want to read your comments and your thoughts about the final episode. But yeah, I have been told that there's going to be a season 3. Yay. So I'm excited about that. And a lot of people, they get bummed because they're like, oh, it's going to be a long wait and all of this. But here's my thought about it before we dive into these comments. My thought is, I've waited almost 3 years now for Jujutsu Kaisen season 3, and it's coming this January. And the elation and hype and feeling of excitement that I have is so good that it makes me realize, you know what, if I gotta wait a year or two till the new season comes out, there are so many other anime we can be watching on this channel in the meantime and enjoying and discovering. And then when the next season comes out, the hype is going to be there. So that's really exciting. So I'm actually okay with it. I'm totally fine with having this new season come out later. As long as they take their time and make it good, that's all I ask. That's all I ask for in terms of that. But with that being said, let's dive into these comments. Several are from multiple commenters over multiple episodes, so we're going to talk about that. The Sledgehammer 205 for episode 9 says, Mantis Shrimp actually has that jacked figure seen in his first fight with Okaroon. Momo and Ira, and then back at the school. He disguises as a dairy farmer worker, and it's his continuing workout to stay in shape, and he's probably using the nano skin technology on himself. Yes, we talked about that in the discussion, but I love the joke of like, he's jacked, it's a joke. So DanDaDan also has a tendency to reference many aspects of Japanese pop culture, from Ken Takakura, the aliens and monsters based on many old Japanese shows from the 70s and 80s. The new character's introduction at the teaser has him singing an insert song from 1979's Mobile Suit Gundam. My brother's a big Gundam fan, and so he knows a lot of the references. I do not, but I think that that's something that does add a layer to DanDaDan that a lot of other shows don't have. A lot of shows are afraid of using pop culture references, and I get why. Because if you use a pop culture reference, there's a chance your audience won't know what you're talking about and will be like, what? So for example, like the Ranma 1/2 reference with Gigi, if you don't know Ranma 1/2, you will have no clue why they're doing that. And so it can kind of be, it's a gamble. Humor is a gamble. Anytime you use humor or references, it is a gamble of whether or not your audience gets it and whether or not your audience finds it funny, even if they don't. So I know just enough about Gundam to kind of get the reference, and it's funny. And just physical humor, like what Kinta used in episode 10, is just my jam. I love it. I love it a lot. So yeah. But thank you, Sledgehammer, for that comment. Chair Check in episode 9 says, it's worth remembering, the normal kids can't see the Gigi's evil eye, but they can see him kick an entire football team into a goal. We're going to talk about that. Because I was like, yeah. Because normies, can't see spirits, but they can see the effects of the spirit's actions. Similarly, when Okarun turns into Turbo Granny mode, he looks normal and a bit hunched over, but he is still visibly running at 100 kilometers per hour doing insane air moves. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I want to get it out of the way before we start episode 12. I want to get it out of the way. Just my general thoughts about that. But good to note, Chair Check. Thank you. Monster Enthusiast, to that point, for episode 10, says, nothing is broken. They're in an empty space. And so Mantlar 8168 for episode 11 added to that, saying about the collateral damage, most things are taking place in an empty space caused by aliens, and it's separate from the regular world. There are no spiritually aware people, and any damage is reversed upon closing the empty space. And Christopher Peterson added to that with episodes 10 and 11. Episode 10 saying, many times in this show, the collateral damage has been in the spirit realm and not real. But as the crab attack in season 1 showed, sometimes it is. So here, is it real or not? I'm not sure, but as we don't see any people around, I'm going to guess no. Maybe it's made clear in the next episode, which they're going to touch upon in a second. But a kaiju battle in the middle of town would be quite devastating. So for all involved, let's hope for the not option. Then in episode 11, they say, from the top of my head, the only times they're like, yes, this was in a spirit realm. The only time there was real collateral damage in DanDaDan was the abandoned hospital and nearby road in episode 1, Turbo Granny's attack in the city, and Evil Eye, and Okarun, destroying Ayase's house. We did also have Evil Eye punch a ball so hard that several people flew into a goal just from the wind force alone, but no one seems to think that was strange. So I do think the criticism of DanDaDan not bothering with consequences still stands. And look, I grew up watching One Piece and Bleach and Yu Yu Hakusho, although that series takes place almost entirely somewhere else. But with Bleach and with One Piece and Shonen, I grew up with Shonen and Sailor Moon and all that. So I understand Shonen logic and how it works. And so I am glad people reminded me about the space barrier. And so I get that. My big thing is, if we're doing a space barrier, a space dimension, a parallel dimension, why go to the trouble? Why would the aliens or the yokai or the monsters or whatever go to the trouble to recreate all of the landmarks just so that they'll get destroyed and then rebuilt back together once the barrier disappears like it was nothing when it goes back to normal? Y'all have to understand, as a writer and as an English teacher who teaches writing and narrative and plot decisions and all of this, my mind goes here. And I'm like, it just feels like a safe narrative choice to create artificial stakes with the buildings and such being destroyed, but then it's inconsequential. Like, all the buildings being destroyed, all the stuff happening means nothing, because once the barrier's gone, it all goes back to normal. There's no consequence. There's no people in danger. There's no actual buildings destroyed, which means there's no consequence. And that is what it is. And some people can be like, well, isn't that a good thing? And it is. It's just, when you're creating stakes in your story, you've kind of eliminated the stakes. And I'm like, oh, well, it's all going to go back to normal in about 2 seconds. And nobody's going to be hurt. So I guess our only people in danger are the main characters. Hope they live, since they're the main characters of the whole series. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. It is shonen logic. It is fine. If you are fine with it, cool. I have to adjust my expectations, because girl is watching some real hardcore, gritty, realistic shows on this channel, and I have to adjust my sight to, oh, now I'm in DanDaDan vision, where the points don't matter. So I'm in whose line is it anyway mode, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. So that's kind of where I'm at, but it's fine. I just have to adjust myself moving forward, that anytime we go into an other dimension, there are no consequences with the buildings or collateral damage. It's just a safe narrative choice, and the mangaka was safe. They just played it safe. And I'm like, grow some balls. Where's your golden balls like Okarun? Give the characters some real stakes. I'm joking, of course. I'm joking. I love the mangaka's choices in this overall. And so it's just, I'm kind of like, you played it safe. Ha! So Just pointing at the mangaka and calling them out when they're, have wrote this amazing story, So I just wanted to clear that up with you all because it has been bugging me the last several episodes. And now it's like, okay, we'll just let it go. Accept the logic. It's like Spy Family logic. Just accept it. El Freya for episode 10 and 11 says, I went back and checked episode 5, season 1, and there's no Kinta to be seen. So strange. I wonder what that means. Would have been fun if we'd had him a few times in the background. Did he just retcon his own backstory? No, again, this mangaka just inserts things and you just have to accept it. We're not going for Pulitzer Prize winning writing, but it's okay. We like DanDaDan for what it is. And then in episode 11, Evil Eye's ultimate weakness. Now this, El Freya, you are devious. El Freya, you are maniacal for this one. Evil Eye's ultimate weakness. If this was a very, very different anime, and thank God it's not, if all else fails, Okarun could just turn Gigi back by simply urinating on him. Well, it's true. Survival shows have gone to far worse topics than that. And you know what? I'm so glad because DanDaDan does skirt the line of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable or inappropriate and appropriate. And it does so very successfully, in my opinion. But I'm so glad they've not gotten to that point because one, the idea of a character urinating on another character is not my kink, so no. But 2, Okarun and Gigi are friends, so if you can imagine Gigi turning back into his normal self and seeing Okarun standing in front of him, like dick out, peeing on him, that's uncomfortable. And I'm not ready for that. So no, glad we've not decided to do that, but El Freya, you are devious for suggesting that. Moomin Comet says for episode 10, the kaiju is supposed to be a red king, another homage to Ultraman. Love it. A lot of people have been talking about Godzilla references, which I've seen some Godzilla films. My brother is a huge Godzilla, Mothra, like major fan. So I grew up with him showing me all the old Japanese films that he found. He's like, have you seen this? He loves them. And so I grew up kind of through vicariously living through them through him. So yeah, but I like the other Ultraman reference. Fun times. And then Alexandra Q for episode 10 says, I don't see a way where Okarun and Momo can take such a massive being alone, even if he is powered by the golden ball. If I remember correctly, this amplifies their powers. Yeah, so I'm going to be curious this episode to see if they defeat the kaiju, are they going to get Okarun's other ball back? And if that happens, what do we do then? What happens? Because, that was kind of the main point of the series was him getting both of his balls back. So we'll see. For episode 11, Alexander Q says, I agree. I wanted to see Evil Eye fighting alongside them and to see how the dynamic would have worked. That being said, I appreciate the reasoning to not bring Evil Eye into this one, and I can understand it and it makes sense. Here's to hoping that fighting inside the mecha won't make Evil Eye think it's all right to fight others and undo all the hard work that Okarun has had to put up with, as per Okarun's previously stated concerns. Well, we'll see how that goes. And then the giant house turning into a giant Buddha because of Momo is hilarious. I really want to see this giant Buddha fight the kaiju. Me too. I'm excited for that. And then finally, Human Dynamo for episode 10 says, Kinta's entire episode were Gundam references. And they gave a link on YouTube. So if you go to their comment on episode 10 on YouTube, you can see the link. They talk about the clock, the song, Gundam's I See You, My Enemy, and Don't Give Up Kinta, and more. I'm all about it. And what I love about it is that this is the one case where the physical humor and Kinta's personality really make it work for his character, and I really appreciate it. You don't have to have the references to appreciate it, but it's still good regardless. So But anyway, I've talked enough. I've talked for 14 minutes. We need to get on to the season finale, right? All right, y'all. I've gotten my coffee. I've gotten everything set to go. We're going to watch season 2, episode 12, the final episode of season 2 of DanDaDan. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. Before we start this discussion, I just want to let y'all know, as you probably saw from the end of the episode, Romania was piping hot. The tea was not tepid. by the end of that episode. And as you probably know, I usually start out my discussions like immediately after watching. So I will say this, I was in a sour, grumpy face mood throughout this discussion because the episode itself was fantastic. The season finale was so good. And it was that one event at the cliffhanger that just threw me off my edge. And so I'm recording this like several hours later because I'm like, that was dumb. Why did I do that? So I just want to let you all know that I've been talking with people in the Discord on Patreon as soon as the episode was over, and someone brought up a really good point that it could be that Alien Girl, maybe she doesn't learn human speech unless she kisses somebody that is immediately in front of her, and that's a thing. So the point is that I was very mad during the ending of the discussion, and I'm sure you'll all be able to tell, but at the end of the day, I do love DanDaDan. It's such a good show, and I don't want me being upset in the moment to be not representative of my feelings of the series as a whole. I'm super excited for season 3, but I think we all might need some time to process after season 2 is over. Let Science Saru cook, and then whether it's the end of 2026 or 2027, come back and see the series then. And I will look forward to it, but I'm not proud of this discussion, especially at the end, because I was letting my emotions control me. But as Damage3245 says, the best thing to do is just be open-minded and know that I'm anime only. So I don't know where this girl and her alien ways are taking us, but we'll just see in season 3. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoy the discussion, and thank you all so much for the support and for watching the reactions. I've calmed down slightly and did the Charlie Day method from Always Sunny in Philadelphia and just had more coffee because that's going to relieve anxiety. Why is like the 22 minutes of this episode were absolutely amazing. I had so much love for it. And then they just introduced bullshit the last 30 seconds. I'm like, but why, show? When you're doing so well. We're going to talk through it. Now, y'all have to understand, I am the biggest Okaroon Momo Stan OTP person. So, of course, anytime somebody's going to interfere with that, it's going to get me a little peeved. But it's just the way they did the cliffhanger for this season, I'm just like, quit wasting my time, DanDaDan, and we're going to get into it. So, son of a bitch. Anyway, you're going to have to hear me nag the last minute of this episode, but we're not going to do that until the very end. So, before we get to that, and hopefully by then I'll calm down a little bit, we are going to talk through the rest of this episode. I freaking love Kinta. Kinta can do no wrong in my book. He is delusional like Ira. He has a soft heart like Gigi. He is smart and strategic like Momo. And he's an absolute dork and sci-fi nerd like Okaroon. But it's so endearing. He could be the Ringo Starr of this crew. And by that I mean Ringo Starr was maybe not the most powerful individual of the Beatles. You could argue that. Not the best singer, maybe not the best instrumentalist, not the best writer. You could argue all those things. Those are all opinions. But Ringo was the glue. He held the group together. And I feel like Kinta has the potential to be the glue for the group. He can hold things together. And he's got just enough delusion in him that it makes it funny. And even if I didn't get all of the references in this episode, I got that it was a reference. And I got that he was being melodramatic for that sake. And I loved it. It was just so... And I'm a sucker for an underdog. I think part of the reason why Gigi's character maybe doesn't resonate so much for me, because Gigi's the handsome guy. He's the popular guy. You know, I feel like Gigi's source of empathy comes from the fact that he has such a good heart. And he feels so, he has this strong resolution to help Evil Eye. And the fact that Evil Eye doesn't return that is why we feel for Gigi. We're like, oh, but you don't really feel for Gigi in that, like, oh, poor Gigi and his upbringing. I'm like, no, the man's an athletic wonder, super popular, Gigi has not had to suffer through much except for the whole thing with his parents and the whole thing at the house. And the writer does a really good job of making that the source of empathy and sympathy for his character. Because if that hadn't happened, there really wouldn't be a lot of reason to root for Gigi aside from he's a nice guy. And so because the author knows that going in, they do a really good job of setting up why we should root for Gigi. But with Kinta, I would argue that Kinta has a very relatability to a lot of people. It's this idea of sometimes the things that you love and are passionate about are shunned by society. And this is kind of like the ultimate underdog moment where he gets to come up and say, no, my love for robots and all the stuff I've been studying for has led to this moment and I love it. And I'm like, I would root for Kinta to become a pilot or an astronaut or something because he has all the training. I loved Kinta in this episode. I absolutely loved him. And I love Gigi. Don't get me wrong. I like Gigi a lot. But Gigi has a harder uphill battle for sympathy if it wasn't for the whole parent thing from the end of season 1, in my opinion, than Kinta does. Kinta is immediately, you're like, oh, I get why we want to root for you. I loved the creativity of this episode. I loved the creativity. DanDaDan thrives best when it is just chaotic, funny and chaotic and creative. That is when DanDaDan is at its best. And for the majority of this episode, I was loving everything that we were getting. The Buddha mech, I loved the idea. This episode, again, did not go at all like I thought it was going to go. I loved at the very beginning, we cut through all of their reactions. Momo's like, what the hell? Okarun's like, ah, shit. Ira's like, this is actually a lot of fun. Okay. I like Ira being kind of a secret dork too. Love it. Evil Eye has no clue why he's there. And then I love that the Buddha robot MK2. I love the idea that because you have the nanoskin and you can make up whatever you want because of that, I like the idea that Kinta has made his own manual, which looks like the Fujigi magazine books. That is so clever, so creative. I love it. So if we're thinking that this girl is an alien girl, she has antennae, so I'm assuming she's an alien or from not Earth. Why was she in the kaiju suit? Why was the golden ball amplified her abilities? Or maybe not. Or maybe she already had those abilities to begin with. We don't know. Why was she there? What is she after? We're going to talk about her at the end of this episode. And I'm going to try to calm down by then and give her some grace. But I'm more mad at the creator of the series than I am her character. So let's preface with that. But we'll get there. But anyway, I love the Buddha idea. And I love, at first you're like, okay, they're all going to work together. It's going to be like a Power Rangers moment, whatever. The one realistic thing this episode does, the one realistic moment is the fact that no one under normal circumstances would know how to power this. Because if you think about it, Okarun would kind of know. Evil Eye, Ira, and Momo have no clue how to power a mech. They have no clue what they're doing. So honestly, the most genius, realistic part about this episode was the fact that none of them knew what to do, except for Kinta. They're like, how do I move this thing? And he's like, well, I don't know. And they're like, the kaiju is coming. And they're like, okay, can I push this button? Will it not explode? And there's a lever. And I love the Evil Eye's like, why have you locked me up in a place like this? I would almost feel bad for Evil Eye, except I'm like, Gigi's in there. Like, come on. But, he's just like, why am I locked up in here? And then he's like, calm down, everybody. Listen to me. I love that you see the magazine's part of the nanoskin. He's like, I'm going to check the manual. And he's like, amazing. The energy field is 5-fold. So, okay, let's back up. At the beginning of this, I'm sure the kaiju at this point, which is the alien girl, was basically doing self-defense, thinking they were being attacked by them, which they were. But why were they checking out the hotels and stuff to begin with? I guess next season we're going to have to wait. We're going to have to wait to find that out, which is garbage. So he's like, I want to kick this guy out. And he's like, let's all push a button of our choice, which is the worst idea. Momo, you are usually very smart about this. Let's not pick the button of our choice. So I like that Okarun picks the eject button, essentially. Momo picks this one button that's under the glass. Kinta presses the one button that looks like it's next to the eject button. Ira picks one that has a little heart. Of course she does. And then Evil Eye just smashes something. So then we have one gets a cuckoo clock. Okay. One causes the arm to fall off. One ejects Okarun. One gets the tongue to come out. And one starts making the arm spin around. And Momo's just like, why did I do this? Why did I do this? This is not good. So I like the fact that Kinta is like, okay, let's examine the enemy. So it says on there, danger, stealth kaiju, big, nothing too bad. That's a horn. Those are eyes. I'm a genius. I'm Kinta Sakata. Again, just so much humor in this little moment here. And he's like, what do I do? And then he sees this one little part, which is some kind of lever that I'm assuming has something to do with Gundam, perhaps. And then it makes him completely fall forward, which I love. Again, the realism of the moment. Now, all of this with the I feel like anytime there is a specific color, it's a spatial dimension. So again, the aliens are making spatial dimensions. So anytime it was in green, it was all a spatial dimension and not actual reality. And then when they get back in town, it becomes actual reality, which I am a little concerned about all of the photos taken of the kaiju and of the UFO house. I'm a little bit worried about that because that could have actual consequences and trajectories. Or if we're going the Mob Psycho 100 route, it won't. So some people were comparing, we had a discussion in the Discord about this series, and I forget who it was, but someone online in the Discord on Patreon was saying that people were comparing this to Chainsaw Man. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. I will highly disagree on that. Without spoiling Chainsaw Man, Chainsaw Man is a deconstruction of the shonen genre. It is a destruction and dissection and autopsy of the shonen genre. This is a celebration of the shonen genre. DanDaDan celebrates every aspect of the shonen genre that people may have issues with or may be like, but logically. DanDaDan says, don't care, gonna do it, and celebrates it with chaos. So Chainsaw Man deconstructs the shonen genre and is like, actually, let's dissect this and have an autopsy. And those are two very different things. Someone then responded saying that the more apt comparison to DanDaDan would be Mob Psycho 100, which I completely agree with, because Mob Psycho 100, even though that series is very different, someone in the comments was comparing Kinta to a mob character, a side character that gets some attention, and I'm like, which, go watch Mob Psycho 100. But yeah, Mob Psycho 100, without spoiling anything for that series, has moments where you're like, oh, these things that happen, like the kaiju being seen in town, or the robot turning into a UFO, shouldn't that have consequences? And then in Mob Psycho, it doesn't. It doesn't. Everybody just kind of like moves on with their lives, and you're like, oh, when in reality that would not be the case. I feel like this series is exactly the same way. So I think it's a more apt comparison. But yeah, I loved rooting for Kinta in this episode against the kaiju. I love the idea that Kinta is like, oh, I can actually use my imagination and fight this robot and reconstruct the house robot to look like this super Gundam, and it's golden. I love Kinta's color is gold. Love that. I like that that's his distinct color, because Evil Eye is purple. Momo is like this turquoise, which is oddly similar here. Iris is pink. Okarune's is red. The style of this episode, something else I also appreciate about DanDaDan, is that they are exploring and letting their animators kind of have free reign of how they animate certain scenes. So the scene where Okarune is getting out of the parachute and the ejected seat is a lot more like, it felt kind of ping pong-esque. It felt like something by the creator of Ping Pong and Mind Game, which is funny because that's on the channel now. But the animation style felt very much like that, and was a little bit more rough around the edges, but it was more about movement and frenetic energy, and it fit that moment so well. And I thought that was really, really well done. So I liked the first person perspective with Okarune. Made me a little bit nauseous. I'm not gonna lie. It made me a little bit nauseous. I can't play first person shooter games. My brother wants me to play Halo with him all the time, or Call of Duty, and I'm like, first person shooter, the perspective, it makes me seasick. It gives me motion sickness. Nope. I say seasickness, but it just gives me motion sickness. But yeah, the animation in this episode, awesome. Loved it. So pretty. And then yeah, so the kaiju, and then Evil Eye, fighting the kaiju, knocking it out. The thing about Evil Eye, and I know I gave the author a lot of disdain the last few episodes because I was like, Evil Eye is just written into a corner and they can't really do anything right now. The reality is, yeah, there's nothing for Evil Eye to do at the moment because Evil Eye is still in toddler mode and hasn't been able to be controlled by Gigi. And that's probably not going to happen for a long time in this series because I can see the mangaka deciding, oh, I can play Evil Eye up for a lot of laughs as a goof character and have him also be simultaneously a hindrance but also a buffer. Because in this scene, for example, Evil Eye saves Momo and them with knocking the kaiju back, but then Okarun has to think to himself, okay, do I have Evil Eye fight the kaiju? But if I do that, like Alexander Q said in the intro, is that going to undo all of our training of, no, you only fight me? What do we do with that? So we'll see where that goes. But I am glad because for a second, I also, Okarun saying, are you okay, Evil Eye? Not, are you okay, Gigi? Okarun's just a saint. He's just a nice guy. He's just the sweetest. I love Okarun so much. And then, of course, Evil Eye is only thinking of, can we engage in the death match now? I'm like, do you not see what's happening around you, sir? No, he does not care. He does not care. He sees what's happening, but he does not care. I am really proud that Okarun was considering you, because he was like, I have to save Miss Ayase. I love Miss Ayase. I have to save her. Poor Ira. F her drag in this episode. Especially at the end when Momo blows up the house and it's like, R.I.P. Ira. She lasted a whole 24 episodes. Or when she showed up, like episode 5, she lasted a whole 20 episodes. No, Ira's probably fine, but she's probably gonna be pissed next season being like, why'd you blow up the house with me in it? What the fuck? You know, pardon my language. But yeah, she's like, Miss Ayase and the others are still inside. And for a hot second, Okarun considers using Evil Eye to fight it. And he's like, I want to fight that thing. And he's like, oh, I could have him do it, but that will set us back steps instead of, him just fighting me. And thank goodness Kinta eliminates that problem where Kinta's like, nope, I figured out how to move this thing. I know what to do now. It's been my dream to pilot a robot. And here we are. And I just love Kinta in this episode. I love Kinta getting to show off. I think it's great. Let's get past the OP here. I did love the OP a lot. The OP really grew on me and I came to really love it. But yeah, the fight between him and the kaiju, so good. So good. Loved it. And then I loved it very similar to the Hayashi band showing up and Momo and Okarun being ready to like headbang and rock and roll. You have Evil Eye here being like, impressive, and Okarun's like, yeah, and they're both like, okay, cool. I was also really glad with the results of what we get with Ira and Momo helping Kinta, and we'll talk about that here in a second, because I like Kinta having his moment and getting to do like the Daedalus Aksh. Like, those are all, they have to be references, but I loved all of that, but I also loved at the end, because I was starting to say, I'm all here for Kinta having his moment and being able to do things. I get why Okarun and Evil Eye are not doing anything. They're off to the side here. But I'm like, what is Ira and Momo going to do? And it makes perfect sense. They were motion sick and stuck in the airbags most of the time. And at the very end, they all three work together. That's what DanDaDan is good at, is having the male and female characters work together in a very organic way where they're not left out. Like, that is a progressive move that DanDaDan does that I appreciate probably the most out of everything. It is slightly offset by what we're going to talk about at the end. But for the most part, I appreciate that DanDaDan has those moments of them all working together because they should, and it works, and it's great. I kept waiting for Peeny Weeny to be like, please don't destroy my dairy farm, but they weren't actually getting destroyed because this is a parallel universe. But all of the moves, all of the stuff, I love the sunglasses that the robot ends up getting. The hip plates kind of feel like Peeny Weeny a little bit. It was just so good. And so then we have the Gundam. They say like the Z-Dundam. I like that they use the sword to like mop out the Gundam so you couldn't tell it. But yeah, it's like the RX-7K. The model suit. I mean, it's essentially Gundam. High school kids are the worst. They're sometimes the worst, I was lucky that I was lucky that I had a small group of friends and we were all kind of nerds. So we all liked Lord of the Rings and stuff like that together. And so we didn't make fun of each other because we all liked it. And my school was small enough that they were just like, oh, you have an interest. like everybody, there's only like 23 in my graduating class. So it's like, oh, you have an interest. Cool. You're a different, unique individual. Nice. But there weren't like cliques at my high school because you literally were a farm kid, a jock, or miscellaneous. That's literally what you were. Farm kid, jock, miscellaneous. You fell into those three categories and they all interlapped and intersected because we all grew up in a small rural town. So it's like, which was to my benefit. I actually had a fun high school because that's what we had. But it just sucked that these people were so mean to Kinta just because. And honestly, what I found out is when people dog on you for your passions and what you like if they dog on you for liking anime or dog on you for liking like certain things, it's kind of because they're probably insecure about themselves. They're probably insecure about themselves and they don't have hobbies. I found that people that usually bitch the most about stuff like that and are the meanest are people that just don't have hobbies of their own. And their hobby is putting people down. And that's sad. Really sad. I'm like, go touch grass. Go get a hobby. Like, go knit or something. But I felt bad for Kinta because I could relate to him having that passion and people kind of like talking bad about it. And it sucks in high school because you're not at that level. Like when I talk to students and they talk about having a bad high school experience, a lot of times I'm like, well, look, if you have a bad high school experience, just get through it. It's going to suck. Get through it. And then if you go on to like get a job or go to college or do whatever, you can kind of pick and choose your friends. And that's a lot better than being stuck with the same people for years, you know. But I love that Kinta doesn't give up. I love that he grabs a hold of his passion and he's just ready to fight. I love it. And he's like, who cares? What difference does it make? And he's like, I'm flying a robot and I love robots. And I've always been preparing. I love that we get the little montage of him at the roller coaster at the theme park and shows his glass. This is why he has so many glasses, because his glasses keep flying off the roller coaster. Like you see him there on all the rides, preparing himself, like in the teacups on the Screaming Eagle ride. He's like, I believed I would pilot a robot someday. And so I've been preparing. I've perfectly prepared for robot motion sickness. Also, what this tells me is that Kinta could go into outer space in season 3. If Alien Girl ends up going back to outer space, Kinta would be like, take me with you. Take me to your leader. He'd be like, I can go in outer space. I've trained for it. I'm basically an astronaut. If Katy Perry can be, so can Kinta. Let's be real. Let's be so for real. But yeah, I loved the battle. I loved the gold and the green. I loved all of that. It was amazing. It's so good. And then Okarun. Also, Okarun deserves a medal for running back into town completely barefoot. Okarun needs a medal for that. Evil Eye, he don't care. And then, yeah, they all get down there. So the whole thing with the airbags was hilarious. I loved that. And then, yeah, Kinta believes that he's going to die. And Okarun's like, you should eject and get out of there. But then Momo ends up helping him. Is Momo's little blob of psychic energy there a little bit phallic? Nah, maybe not. Maybe not. Also, it's funny now that we know that there's a woman inside the kaiju suit that Momo and Ira have been fighting another female competitor this whole time. She is Rita Repulsa. She's a lot prettier than Rita Repulsa, to be fair. But yeah. So the robot can use the abilities of its pilots. I freaking loved this moment of Ira and Momo teaming up. I love it. Momo and Ira, if they could just put aside their differences for a hot second, are totally good to go. Love it. Love it. She's like, don't let that guy go. And the Kinta's like, leave the rest to me. And they're like, we're all working together, dork. But I love the teamwork that this series promotes. It's great. Mm-hmm. Love it. It's super awesome. The Kinta Emperor Great Pegasus Cicada. I feel like Pegasus is a name of a Gundam, isn't it? And I love that both Ira and Momo are like, stop moving it. You're making us sick. Poor Kinta. Poor Kinta. But I love how their robot looks. I love that it has the glasses, but it has the jawline of Ira and the hair and then the buff. It's kind of a buff robot too because Momo likes buff guys. So I love it. I love it. It works so well. And then the Okaroon looks back and Evil Eye is just, what is he drawing there? He's just drawing evil eyes and a body. Bless. Here's the thing. Evil Eye is going to be in this state for a while where he is just a buffer of chaos. It's like there will never be a moment of easiness with this series because Evil Eye will always bear there to be a buffer of chaos. I feel bad for Gigi. Because this entire time, like whenever Ira is in Silky mode, it's still Ira. Whenever Okaroon is in Turbo Granny mode, it's still Okaroon. But with Evil Eye, because we're not there yet, it's never Gigi. It's just Evil Eye or Gigi. It's a Jekyll and Hyde situation. And the two are not merged. So I feel bad for Gigi because I'm like, Gigi's just kind of thrown to the wayside. And it's like, oh, you'll come back when we're done. And I feel bad for him for it, you know? So I don't know. It's going to be a long time coming before we get to that, I'm certain. But yeah, and so they all work together and they spin that damn kaiju around like a tornado and then knock him out. And then the animation when they get back into the daylight, it felt like Wizard of Oz where you flipped a switch and suddenly it was back to full color. Gorgeous. The animation with the sunlight hitting Momo especially, beautiful. And then, yeah, I love the transformation of the house back into the UFO home. Looks amazing. I'm like, they probably will change it back because otherwise people are going to recognize it. But I love it with the little bird out front and the UFO on the side of it. And then love the realism of Ira and Momo instantly being sick and having to find a bathroom. And Kinta. I feel like it's definitely anime only, where that little like animated shot of Momo trying to throw up and find the bathroom and she ends up throwing up in the sink instead. I feel like that was anime only, but that was a really good animated shot. And Kinta's like, I got to pilot a robot. Love that. Also, Momo's throwing up sounds were pretty gross. Just ignore that. So yeah, lots of first person shots of this, like Okaroon running back, which felt very much like the OP. And then he manages to find Evil Eye, who was like Summer Days with Koo, climbing up a radio tower. I was like, what the fudge? I did like the animation shot where he's like, no way, I'm not coming down, like a freaking 2-year-old that climbed up running. You're like, get down here. Like, they are literally having to do daycare with Evil Eye in this. And then he's like, I got food for you. I honestly thought he would say, I honestly thought what Okaroon was going to do was say, hey, if you come down and drag this kaiju back with me, I will fight you. But we can't taunt with that, because he doesn't know the state of the house and stuff when he gets back. So instead he buys the meat bun, which is hilarious in itself. But honestly, Gigi comes back to get the meat bun, and the moment he bites into it, I guess it's not just hot liquids anymore, it's hot food as well. I guess we're updating. But yeah, I do like that Gigi gets the hot bun. I guess he can eat things now that are hot and it works. And it's not just water, although the meat bun, the meat and stuff would have some juices inside the meat bun. So I guess that's it too. But I'm glad Gigi is back. Bless his heart. And then they get him to carry the kaiju back. Now, knowing now that it's just a woman in a suit, that is much more understandable of how they're able to carry her back to the house. Because before, when it was just like, I was sitting there going, it's a full-blown kaiju. Isn't that going to be too big? But no, knowing it's a woman in a suit now makes more sense. I do love the woman. It's like the meme where, have you seen that? Where somebody's just like, go on, do something. They're just poking it. That's what it is like. She's just poking the kaiju. So glad that we got that going on. And then they managed to carry it back. And I like that people eventually get too tired and they can't chase after them anymore. Also, kudos to these guys for building their stamina up. Also, kudos for Gigi not losing his clothes as Evil Eye in this battle. They finally make it back. The kaiju horns are taken off. I love them with the little sparkles around them. Good for them. And then, of course, Kinta comes out and he's like, well, I'm guessing UMAs are talking about, what is a UMA? Is that UMA? What is that referring to? Is a monster. UMAs are unidentified mysterious animals. Okay, well, she might apply to that, actually. So, yeah, he's like, you're late, peons. I love the idea that Kinta just came out of the bathroom. He's like, you're late. Like, love that. Love that for Kinta. That's amazing. It's great. You guys are completely useless. And I like that Okarun's like, oh, hey, thanks for helping us. I'm amazing you figured out how quickly to move it. And he's like, well, it's quite elementary. I want Kinta to be part of the group. I want him as, and I also love the idea of Kinta being somebody without any superpowers, that he just uses his imagination and his know-how to interact in a world that has elements he can associate with. So I love the idea that he is able to pilot the robot and use the nanoskin. Like, he doesn't need a superpower to do that. He just needs an imagination and know-how. And I think that that's such a good buffer and something fresh to add to the dynamic of these other characters now that we've got an alien involved that have all these supernatural abilities. So I think that's fun. I like it. I like it a lot. But yeah, he's like, don't talk so casually to me, handsome guy. Love that he calls Gigi that. He's like, oh, they're fine. Meanwhile, Momo and Ira are just like throwing up vehemently in the house. The only thing I will say is that sometimes with Gigi's character, and again, y'all will be like, well, it's totally fine. When Okarun is sitting there and Okarun and Kinta are having the conversation, all Gigi is doing is smacking his feet together. And I'm like, Gigi, one, we just had a battle nearly to the death with the kaiju. Two, you helped carry the kaiju back. And then three, you don't really even know Kinta. But it just feels like Gigi's just being goofy and dumb in that moment. And I want to give Gigi more respect than that. I want to give Gigi more respect that he is not just somebody that's a big old goofball, but also that he's, mildly intelligent. Maybe he's not. But I want to give him the benefit of the doubt with that. But anyway, so they talk about the golden ball and the fact that it's probably inside the kaiju, which I'm wondering if did she eat the golden ball? Does she have it in her ample bosoms that are going to get pulled out next season? I wouldn't be surprised about that. What do we do with that? So they're like, we should see if the golden ball is inside the kaiju. And I like that Kinta says, if you befriend a split personality guy like him, you can't protect this planet, which that does bring some ideas because, Gigi is a threat until we get Evil Eye under control. And even Gigi is like, yeah, Kinta's right. And I'm like, he's talking about you. He's talking about you, Gigi. Like, he's saying you're a threat and we can't work with you as long as you and Evil Eye aren't in sync. But he's like, I've been told not to interfere that much too. We're buddies. So basically Gigi is like, yeah, the plots told me to stay out as well for now. So totally understandable. Bless. Anyway, it is what it is. So then they're like, oh, there's a person inside the costume. And we find out, also Gigi's saying he doesn't like gore. Relatable. And then he's like, have I done something to you? And he's like, I like Okarun's like, I'll take the initiative because it's my golden ball that we're after. And then they find out it's been a suit all along. The most durable suit in all suitdom, but it is alien, so are we surprised? So then they open it up, and we have like the last minute of this episode, which she looks like the outfit that she's in looks like something off of Neon Genesis Evangelion. It very much looks like a Neon Genesis Evangelion suit. Of course, she's a very curvy woman. Of course she is. Of course, she's like the stereotypical traditional beauty with the short hair, the little alien antennae. I do like that they glow. I do think that's cute. And of course, Okarun sees her. And I'm like, I don't know if she imprints upon him because he's the first human that she technically sees. I do like the green aesthetic a lot. That part's fun. But, oh God. So let's talk about this like last 10 seconds. Momo comes out of the house and looks up. And she's like, can you guys help fix the house? Ira's there trying to crawl out as well right behind her. And the first thing she sees is this woman kissing Okarun. Why is she kissing Okarun? Why, there's no reason for her to kiss Okarun except the mangaka creating unnecessary drama. At least with Ira kissing Okarun in season 1, it was explained as they bumped into each other and it was a moment, and Ira's character had been established to have a crush on Okarun, And for her to try, she had been building up to that moment, taking every advantage to try to kiss him and become more intimate with him. And it was part of the episode. And as frustrating as it was, we knew in that moment it's one-sided from Ira. She's been building up to it. When it happened, you were like, but then we had the rest of the episode to kind of work out through the misunderstanding. Here, not only is it a cliffhanger that we have to wait God knows how long until we get resolution for, but it's not necessary. Because it's like, we know that Okarun and Momo are going to end up together. So this is just artificial stakes. And I'm like, why is she kissing Okarun? Why does every female character, the first thing they do is try to have a sexual encounter with a male character? Why? I would have loved it if Momo walked out and the first thing that she saw was this woman punching Okarun. Because she shouldn't be trying to punch him because she was just fighting him 2 seconds ago. Why is she instantly attracted to him? Why is she instantly trying to kiss him? Why does every female character have to do this? I'm just, as a female viewer, I'm like, dear God, can we have one shonen where every female character is not sexually attracted to the main character? Can we have it? Can we have it? Is it possible? Love it if it was possible. But it just is so cliche. And I'm like, give me something that's not cliche, DanDaDan. You do so well with that, but then why do you fall back on these things? And I'm sure people in the comments are like, you don't understand. She has a terrible backstory. She's had the worst backstory. She's been persecuted and sent from thousands of miles away, and she's been an alien slave, and she's been sent to do all the... I'm sure she's going to have the most heartbreaking backstory, and we're going to feel so sorry for her. And I'm not saying this against her character. She has a great design, whatever, but I'm so over the unnecessary third wheel cliche overdone plot element of every female character has to instantly want to try to kiss the main character. Boo. Boo. And then to compare against last season, the house explodes, except before the explosion was because she learned Kin Takakura's name. This time she kills Ira by making the house explode. And I like that when she crunches the nanoskin, it becomes a heart and then it explodes. I don't know why Momo has to deal with this. I mean, obviously we knew from the end of season 1 that Momo loved Kin. Like the end of last season was like the crush started, and now it's like, oh, she loves him and she's jealous. But it's just such an unnecessary jealousness because it's like, of course, Okarun. If Okarun has a crush on this girl and it creates friction between him and Momo, I'm like, done. DanDaDan, bye. I really like DanDaDan. I really like these last 2 seasons. But this episode was like a 10 out of 10 until this moment of unnecessariness. And then I was like, that just knocked it down a peg or two. Because why? Doesn't need to be. Why is Okarun having a non-consensual kiss? Why are you doing this to Okarun? He didn't ask for that. Why are you doing this? Why? Nope. If the genders were reversed, nope. Y'all are probably thinking I'm being too harsh on poor DanDaDan, but I expect better from my shonen. Anyway, that part makes me mad, but the rest of the episode, Kinta's introduction, and the season as a whole, I've really enjoyed. I've liked the season as a whole, honestly, and I complain because I care. I want to love DanDaDan so much, but I'm not going to be one of those reactors that was like, it was the best thing ever with no faults. I'm not going to be that reactor. Sorry. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I'm not going to be that type of reactor. I'm always going to tell you if there's something I have issues with, and I totally understand if this doesn't bother you. I fully get it. I totally do. But it just is lame to me. It's lame. I'm 37 and it's lame to me. So, and it just is such a blot on an otherwise perfect episode that was so good. And I'm like, oh, DanDaDan, we do so well. Why are you taking 3 steps forwards and 2 steps back? That's just me bitching. That's just me complaining, and I'm sorry. But I really, really did love this season. I liked how it went in a lot of different areas than prior seasons. But if I have to spend the first 2 or 3 episodes of season 3 with this garbage miscommunication and false love triangle that doesn't actually exist, y'all, count me out. So, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. Give me a year off to gather myself and we'll see. And maybe I'll be more warmed up to it once we figure out why she kissed him. If there's a reason she kissed him besides just shock value and non-consensual kissing because it's a cliche in shonen, we'll see. We'll see. It's 2025 though, y'all. It's 2025. So anyway, I've really enjoyed season 2. It did not go the way that I thought it would at all, but that was not to its detriment. So, and we have Kinta now. So I love Kinta's character. Fun times. But anyway, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. Please know, I'm in the moment, emotional about it. I'm sure by the time I answer comments, I will be calmed down. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. It's going to be a long wait before season 3, but we're going to be taking a break and having some things on the channel next week. And then we are starting a highly anticipated, highly recommended show the following week, which I am nervous about because people have been really hyping it up. So we'll see how it goes. But in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, I'll be back at some point to watch DanDaDan season 3. Bye.